Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Shapiro, thank you for being here today. It's nice to see you. A couple of questions with regard to cybersecurity and data breaches, but what I wanted to start is to get an explanation and to understand a legal opinion that your office has issued.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that you might be able to answer some questions for me on it. And it has to do with the opinion that was issued from your office regarding the classification of 80% receivers in respect to building or making firearms.
Sure.
So from what I understand, the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives does not consider these to be firearms legally. Yet, your legal opinion has classified them as such.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been hearing from constituents back home in York County, and what they're telling me is that the state police have been sending forms to firearm businesses to fill out if or when they sell an 80% receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Considering that the General Assembly has not passed anything relating to these firearm receivers, I'm curious how the state police can enforce something like this in light of the fact that it seems to contradict what the federal law says and what the plans are for the future with regard to this legal opinion.
Sure. I want to answer your question directly. Let me take a step back for the benefit of the other members to explain what an 80% receiver is, if I may first, and then get to the heart of your question.
Chairman Brown only gives me 5 minutes, so.
I'll be brief.
Thank you.
80% receivers, or ghost guns, are essentially guns that are in two parts. You can buy them at a local gun show. In fact, we've sent agents undercover to watch this transpire. You go over to the table, you buy the 80% component, the 20% component, bag of screws. You can easily put it together, and then you have a gun. You have a gun that did not have to go through a background check, as another handgun would, and you have a gun that is totally unserialized. People walk out of these gun shows with huge duffel bags full of them, and then they're taken out to the streets and they're sold. And in Center Streets District, we have picked up, in Center Hughes District, we've picked up over 50 of these ghost guns that made their way from these gun shows out to the streets where they're used in different criminal activities. These are a serious, serious problem. Now, to the heart of your question. I have the authority that y'all gave me under the Commonwealth Attorneys Act to issue legal opinions where there is a question of law. So I have that firm legal authority to do that. I issued it because we were asked by the Pennsylvania State Police, what do we do with these guns? We can't go out and arrest a prohibited purchaser for owning one of these 80% guns, yet we can arrest them for owning or trying to purchase, trying to purchase or own a regular handgun. And they said, can you give us some legal guidance? And we gave them the legal guidance that says you should consider these to be firearms for those purposes. They then sent guidance to the local gun shop saying, if someone comes in to try to purchase an 80% gun, the 80% gun is perfectly legal, but you need to go through the same standards of background checks as it relates to a purchaser of a handgun from your shop. Look, I think we can all agree we don't want guns in the hands of criminals. And my legal judgment is that these 80% guns are guns for these purposes and need to be treated as such. If this body is serious about trying to do something about gun violence, trying to protect people's Second Amendment rights, trying to make sure guns don't get in the hands of criminals, then I think you'd agree that we need to take this issue very, very seriously.
I'm just still struggling to understand if the alcohol, tobacco, and the ATF do not consider these under federal law to be a firearm, how we can make that legal jump.
Well, because you passed a Firearms Act here in Pennsylvania. I interpreted state law. I didn't interpret federal law. You're a sovereign body. You don't answer to Congress. You don't answer to the federal government that way. You passed this Firearms Act, and I interpreted it. I said nothing about federal law. Our federal partners can do whatever they want as it relates to federal law. I'm the chief law enforcement officer of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I acted interpreting a state law within my legal authority that you've given me as the Attorney General based on the very real and dangerous situation we have in communities in Pennsylvania here today.
Thank you. If I may, I chair the Senate Communications and Technology Committee. We recently conducted 2 hearings to discuss what the state's doing in the world of data privacy and data security. I was very concerned that there is really no unified system of data security across all of our agencies. What we are hearing from the National Conference of State Legislatures is that 70% of data breaches occur within state government, local government, and we have no unified system to address this. So am I missing something? Does the Commonwealth have a strategy in place to understand the scope of this problem such that we can better identify the resources needed to address it?
Well, I can't speak for the Commonwealth. I can speak for the Office of Attorney General. And I can tell you that we do have a plan and we're implementing it, and it comes in a multifaceted way. Number one, there are a number of big companies engaged in practices that are compromising your data. Google and Facebook come to mind, and we are engaged in a multi-state investigation of those 2 companies and many others as it relates to the security of your data and the privacy rights that you have as a citizen of this Commonwealth and of this country. Number 2, we've got special task forces with our federal partners to deal with data issues, to deal with privacy issues, to deal with threats from overseas and other state actors. I can tell you that there are a number of issues that keep me awake at night, and this is one of them. When I see what foreign governments are doing and what other actors are doing to try and infiltrate our systems, not just our governmental systems here, but our commercial sector as well, it should concern every member of this body. And I'm glad that you've taken, obviously, a leadership role as Madam Chair on that committee, and I think this body needs to do a lot more when it comes to that. Finally, I've partnered with some members of this legislature who are looking to update our data breach laws. Right now, when a company like Equifax, for example, loses your data and your privacy is compromised, I can go and sue them. And for every violation, I'm able to recover $1,000 for that individual, or $3,000 if they're a senior citizen. That's good. Some would argue that that number should be higher. I'll leave that up to your judgment as to whether it should. What is not good is within our law, it is very unclear as to when that company needs to notify me or some other state regulator of that data breach. We need to make that much clearer. I've testified before Congress to this effect, that probably in this area we need to have a federal law that does this as opposed to 50 different states. But that's an area where I think we need some real improvement in our laws. And I can tell you that this is an issue that I hope this body spends a good bit of time focused on, because it is very scary what's happening right now.
And that is certainly something that we're working on. And I can tell you that there's also a provision that any agency that's subject to a breach has to report it to you. So I would like to circle back with you to see what your office has thought about in terms of changing the data breach law for state agencies, and
Sure.
Any other thoughts that you might have with regard to notification, and any other suggestions that you may have on the topic. And, would like to have your input prior to moving the legislation.
Sure. Be happy to work with you, and happy to have Director Verb report to you on that issue. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.